A very good morning to all of you. Welcome back to Ansarkari. So, taking up next set of important topics for the day. So, writing that impacts. So, a single well-researched article in a reputable journal, it can be far more valuable and impactful than numerous low-quality publications. So, true, it is talking about quality matters over the quantity. So, in India's case, when we're talking about emphasizing upon research and development, so need to increase the GDP allocated. Currently, it is merely 0.8% of the GDP, so that needs to increase. And promoting the culture of research and development in the universities, in the higher education institutions, even when we're talking about under the role of Institute of Eminence. So, highly skilled researchers may find it challenging to explain their findings. So, we need a disciplined approach, focusing upon again more innovative ideas, promoting more of scientific approach as it is mentioned under the DPSP also. So, promoting not just STEM sector but STEAM. So STEAM A involves arts and humanities. So that is also equally important. So for example, like Nature magazine is there, or Lancet report, it is related to health. So choosing the topic. So again, choosing a topic which is out of the common trend, it can be one of the ways how you can choose a topic for higher level of research and development. It needs to be then well structured. So availability of funding remains one challenge. We need a proper then institutional setup. So like recently we saw government has set up the Anusandhan National Research Foundation with a corpus of rupees 50,000 crores. So promoting a balanced approach. And another challenge is plagiarism. So even with the role of artificial intelligence, increasing dependence upon it, so there also it casts certain challenges in terms of plagiarism. So that's another aspect here. And no paper is perfect in its first draft. So again, working and reworking upon it. So that's important. And what we need to take care before the final submission of an article. So scholars, they should meticulously review these submission guidelines of their targeted journal, so as to again avoid any kind of delays. So including more of youth in this, so that again we can better enhance the quality of our demographic dividend. Several Indians still missing in Russia, so families petitioned the Ministry of External Affairs and the Russian embassy. So so it is believed that several Indian men who were fraudulently enlisted in the Russian army and they were forcibly sent to the war zone in Russia-Ukraine border, they're still said to be missing. So in this case, it was believed that they were promised they would be given jobs. So it reflects the challenge of unemployment, that people are ready to pay to leave the country first. It is again both emotionally challenging aspect, and they are again then getting trapped there. So another form of this, we can say, uh, in a way, this is human trafficking, but that is being done on false promises. So this was also seen in case of the cyber slaves case, which we saw that the Indians, they were ready to work in countries like Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam. So certain incidences also emerged like this. So again, regulating the role of firstly social media companies, making the people more aware about such types of frauds and scams which are happening. So that's the thing. So here we see that one of the persons, he traveled to Russia after he came across a YouTube video was promising the job of a security helper in Russia. So that is why the role of social media companies and their regulation is very, very important in terms of moderating the content, in terms of ensuring that it is not spreading misinformation and disinformation or any kind of rumors. Three solutions for clean air. So in this case, this article is talking about three ways how we can tackle the problem of air pollution, particularly in Delhi. So three subheadings that it is talking about is firstly focusing on crop diversification, particularly in Punjab and Haryana, because stubble burning is one of the major and the leading causes. So in terms of like crop diversification, farmers they're reluctant to shift away from paddy cultivation because of two reasons, because they get large input subsidies from the government and they say assured and open-ended procurement by government under FCI. So why would farmers want to lose on this profitability and the assurance on the part of the government? And how we can ensure that they shift to other crops like millets, pulses, or oil seeds. And that is, it should be reliable even economically for the farmers, because already we see that their per capita income is at lower levels. So economic security, and it needs to be then sustainable. So other impacts of or beneficial impacts of crop diversification can be, it will save the input subsidy of the government if the farmers are shifting to other crops. It will reduce the greenhouse gases emissions, like methane is one of the major greenhouse gases emitted from paddy fields because of anaerobic reaction which happens. And thirdly, it will also prevent groundwater depletion, because paddy and sugarcane, these are water intensive crops. So here we see that the state government is offering the farmers a financial incentive worth rupees 17,500 rupees per hectare to the farmers. But again, this is not, we can say, a sufficient amount for the farmers to ensure they are shifting to other crops. So what else can be done in this scheme itself? So center can again join the state government's efforts. They can contribute an equivalent amount, so that at least farmers they get an financial assurance of rupees 35,000 per hectares, and time period should also be specified that it is going to be for 5 years or likewise. So even if center is joining the states, it will not cost them some extra finances, because in a way now center will not have to provide that large amount of, against, for example, input subsidies. So that savings can be again remolded in this form. Then another measure is assured procurement of pulses and oil seeds to reduce again the market risk to the farmers at MSP. That should be done by the center again. Then third solution that it is talking to air pollution is expedite the electric vehicles policy. So that we see that it needs to be effectively implemented. So here, for example, government targets 25% of electric vehicles by 2025. So apart from this, government is providing the like subsidy or the interest subvention when it comes to buying the electric vehicles, or you get certain amount of like a financial discount. So apart from this, the government is also targeting raising the charging points to 30,000. Currently it is only 1,900. So when this simultaneously happens, it might help in changing the behavior of the people when it comes to the decision for which vehicle to choose. And then also 200 battery swapping stations are also being targeted. Apart from this, we can make the, for example, electric vehicles charging points mandatory in residential areas, that parkings in offices and in malls. So it should be made mandatory. And another solution is relying on innovative technologies to capture air pollutants. For example, vacuum cleaning towers can be built at the traffic crossings or the areas which see heavy traffic, which are the hotspots of air pollution. So these are three measures focusing on policy, technology, and economics as a part of the solution. A House committee to examine lateral entry in the civil services. So we have discussed, again, it's a repeated topic, that lateral entry into the civil services, how it is beneficial, what can be the challenges, because again, lateral entry, it is going to be for certain years, and it might raise questions regarding the quality of work that would be done, or the seriousness or the sincerity with which a particular task would be done. That's one challenge. And then again, lateral entrance, how aware or are they about the administrative setup? Because working in a corporate sector and working in administrative setup are two complete different things. So how they'll be able to adapt to that in a very short time period is another thing. And positive is that it would bring in more quality. It can help in again reducing challenges related to red tapeism. It can promote more of transparency or the corporate governance standards or the norms which are there in order to ensure the judicious functioning and like promoting more of transparency here. So here we see that initially, there was one advertisement to fill 45 posts through lateral entry, sparked political storm, and consequently, it was withdrawn. So, it is the department related Parliamentary Standing Committee on Personnel, Public Grievances, Law, and Justice. So, they would be now deciding to examine this lateral entry civil services. So, previously, also, government has recruited people the lateral entrance also at, for example, joint secretary level, so we can also assess their performance, how it has helped us, and what challenges could we further identify during those so country is vulnerable to climate tense over the exported emissions. So, for example, Titan Cements Alexandria Portland Cement Company factory in the Mediterranean city of Alexandria, Egypt. So, exported emissions is it's talking about like I think it would be the product. For example, if cement is being exported or it is related to products like steel. So, the carbon emissions during that entire exercise would be I think the what we are calling to as the exported emissions. And then again, climate change is not only limited to the carbon emissions which are being released by a particular country. It is not like they would be remaining within the territorial limits of a country. They might also spread to other countries, or it would definitely then impact us equally. So that is also can be another interpretation of exported emissions. So fossil fuel exports, that is also in a way, so exported emissions terms of tangible exports and then the gases which are spreading in the atmosphere. So here it is, fossil fuel exports, they have been a hot topic at the United Nations climate conference in Baku, the COP29, for example in the form of oil, gases and coal. So Paris Agreement 2015 is being talked about, where we have the NDC targets, and nations, they set their targets to cut the levels of greenhouse gases emissions. So setting target and deciding is one thing. When the finance is not adequately available, how we can ensure that the measures are implemented in an effective manner. For example, in case of India, we have the Panchamrit target also. So finance is the initial or the prerequisite to implement that vision or the targets that we have. And even so far in COP29 also, we are not seeing any kind of a common agreement being done here as far as climate finance is concerned. So each country is responsible for reducing its own emissions. So we need again acknowledgement on the part of the developed countries when it comes to common but differentiated responsibilities. There needs to be a special and differentiated treatment. And for example, recently we talk about the stance of US, because Donald Trump's he believes that this climate change is a hoax. So that is the thing, which is again another challenge and which might again disrupt the pace. So already we are seeing that the impacts of climate change are amplifying, which is hurting the health of the people or the economic growth of different countries. So which would amplify further, and it would further increase the need for more amount of financial resources. So India junks stage managed $300 billion Baku deal. So it is on similar lines talking about climate finance itself. So stage managed. We are not seeing again that the, for example, factors like fairness related to climate finance is being factored in or not. Again, the same thing, common but differentiated responsibilities. So Delhi slams the unfair means followed for pacts adoption. So India sought the floor to speak before the decision was adopted, but finance outcome was suddenly graveled and nothing more than an optical illusion. India rejected the deal in its present form. Overall package, uh, the $300 billion package is a part of this overall $1.3 trillion per year by 2035 from all the public and the private sources. Question is whether this is going to be sufficient or not. How are we going to then further devolve this the financial availability to different countries? What are going to be the factors? We are not having again that deeper level of clarity here, or we haven't reached that level of discussions because we are already struck at the initial stages of deciding firstly that what is going to be the amount of climate finance. So the problem is that this amount is abysmally poor. It's a paltry sum. We cannot accept it. We are very unhappy, disappointed with the process and the object to the adoption of this agenda. So this is what has been India's stand over this. So new collective and quantified goal is what we are trying to have a common agreement over. So even other developing countries, poor nations, the least developing countries have also not accepted this deal. So construction workers, when it comes to they working in again a polluted environment, or when we see that under GRAP 4, the construction activities cannot be taken up. So ultimately for them, it is not air pollution which is a priority. It is their survival which matters the most. So, for example, here we can say it is the social justice angle or the social equity angle, which needs to be factored in when it comes to the measures being taken up or when it comes to the policy steps that are being taken up so as to ensure the welfare of all. It is their fundamental right. And who is going to then take care of again their families or the money that they are earning as on daily basis as in the form of wages. So that is why we talk about the shift towards living wage becomes again more important in order to ensure that even they should feel that they are equally important as citizens of India. So they are earning like rupees 500 per day to sustain their family in the metropolitan cities. Construction work related to regional rapid transit system projects. So now when these things get halted because of again rising air pollution, so what about their survival? What about their work? Because there'll be almost no jobs during these time periods. So, for example, NGO working on the issue of rights and the livelihood of these blue collar workers has sought monetary help for the affected laborers from the Delhi government. So they are asking rupees 5,000 financial assistance for each construction worker. Cashing in on no jobs. So when the cash handouts help win the polls, incentives for the politicians to create new jobs or create jobs, they are low. So it is related to again politicization of, for example, the issue related to unemployment, which shouldn't be again the way of addressing it because here it is talking about freebies and versus creating of new jobs because creating of new jobs is it takes longer time period, it requires huge amount of capital expenditure, it requires capacity building, it leads to it need we need infrastructure creation before again jobs are created. So if political parties they see that financial incentives are making them or it is actually gaining people's the voters attention, so why would be they going for a difficult task if they are able to do it with merely financial incentives like Ladki Bahin scheme is there, budget of rupees 46,000 crore for 2.4 crore women that only go up as the amount is enhanced to rupees 21 um 2001K in a month. So it is believed that this scheme was a game changer in Jharkhand particularly. So again, when we're talking about more of like effective or analysis or critical analysis of these schemes. So ultimately, if jobs are created, they are more beneficial because firstly, it is having multiplier effects before a job is created also, like infrastructure creation, that is having its impact over a longer time period. Or when it comes to particularly schemes related to skilling and training. So these are self-sustaining measures. So, for example, if we talk about the impacts versus the the freebie, so that is a short-term impact, or that the financial amount, firstly, it is fiscally draining. Also, you need political parties, they need to take care of again the financial metrics also, like we have a target of keeping the fiscal deficit within limits. So how longer or the way which government is spending the limited financial resources matters a lot. So here, for example, if we target only the females, what about other people? What about the people working in the informal sector? Or how we are ensuring that people are being adequately skilled, the capacity or human resources being created. So all these priority areas, they get missed because financial resources are limited. You can either spend them in the form of freebies or you can spend them in the form of capital expenditure. So over 65% of India's workforce is under the age 35. So this is the demographic dividend we're talking about. And India has this time window to leverage this benefit up till 2056. So manifestos, they respond to the income distress, but governments are failing to create new opportunities. So even as a part on the part of the voters also, we need to understand this thing. Several election cycles, we can see this has seen cash handouts, they hardwired into the party manifestos. It's a winning formula for the electoral security. But again, this is not going to be the factor which can ensure a political win during every single elections. So even that is also an aspect related to it. And also, this might lead to India being struck into this low middle income trap also. So Bangladesh panel for the power pacts review, including Adani groups. So when it comes to the electricity trade between India and Bangladesh, so that is the theme it is talking about. So the top quality international legal and investigative firms, because here these two power projects, we can remember the name, Ashuganj and Meghna Ghat. Adani Goda project is there. So US regulator SEC has no jurisdiction to summon a foreign national. Firstly, this has become an debate. So it will have to serve the summons on Adani Group founder and chairman Gautam Adani and his nephew alleged. So this is related to the recent allegations against Adani that they have bribed the government officials to get particular projects related to solar energy in India. So they have bribed the officials in India. That is the allegation against Adani by US. So the question arises whether this is under USA's jurisdiction or not. Because officials, even if again, this is true or false, that is a separate thing. But if officials are being bribed in India, so that needs to be looked into by India and our authorities. So, for example, the Adani power projects, it awaits because Adani faced delayed payments on the part of Bangladesh. So that is why Adani somewhere stopped or reduced the capacity being produced of electricity. that was again this plant Goda plant is there in Bangladesh, so that obviously affects the power security in the short term, and that is also a learning point for India also, that energy security is a very important aspect. A short disruption in that also uh, becomes a major challenge. So Bangladesh on this has to say that it is highly priced. Municipal corporations' revenue struggle mirrors faltering urban development agenda. So again, these areas or challenges they should be the priority, because here the revenue of the municipal corporations, the urban local bodies, is very significant on the part of overall functioning of the urban areas, or even if talking about creation of the urban areas. So revenue struggle, like for example, the basic needs and the basic amenities are ensured by the local bodies. So like it is related to construction of roads or unclogging of the drains or maintaining proper hygiene. These are the, again, the functions of the local bodies. But if there would be again shortfall in the revenue, so even this is, we've seen it is impacting the people who are working. They are not being paid their wages or salaries on time. So here it is talking about that property tax revenues mobilization is at an abysmal low level of only 0.12% of the GDP. So result is that most municipalities, they've ended up becoming mere extensions of the state government, because they have to rely for finances on the state government. So even on the part of financial devolution by the finance commission also, so again they are not directly devolving the financial funds to the local bodies. That is done via the state governments. So this also needs to be amended or reformed, as far as again the reforms related to even the terms of reference in the finance commission is concerned. So what else can be done so that the municipal corporations and the bodies become self-reliant as far as finance and availability is concerned? One is the changes related to the property tax that needs to be made somewhere mandatory, or imposition of some penalties can be one of the ways of again ensuring that people are paying that on timely basis. Rationalizing of the user charges, then strengthening the collection mechanism to meet the growth in urbanization, so that high quality public services in cities are being ensured and they are being made available to the people. Although we have seen that their non tax revenue has been increasing, so that is one positive trend. Then introduction of GIS, that is Geographic Information System based property tax mapping, and digital platforms for the tax collection, so that again we can firstly track also what is the financial leakage that is happening, that can be plugged. So better monitoring to stop the pilferage. We can use technology for again transparency and accountability, and enhanced efficiency in public communication campaigns can be taken up to augment the collections further. And also this would then somewhere also reduce the burden on the state governments as well. So we can see that efficient allocation of financial resources can also be achieved through this. Again, the same topic, India's urban infrastructure financing needs and the reality. So when we're talking about creation of smart cities or urban planning overall, again, the thing starts from the availability of finance. We need to, again, when it comes to urban planning in a scientific manner. So data availability and analysis is an important aspect related to it. So we need to be aware about what are the actual needs, what is the exact amount that will be needing, how will be ensuring the availability of that much of amount, and then monitoring of the implementation. Then again, so that we are aware about the reality and the actual ground situation. So issues at local level, this again, we're talking about the municipal finance. So here also we see like muni bonds or the municipal bonds. These are also of late being issued. For example, if we look at Indore, So that again, that is being promoted as an investment for the investor also. They will also get returns, and municipal bodies would also be able to get the finance that they need. And despite increase in central and state transfers from 37 to 44%, financial health of municipalities, it remains precarious. So the reforms we've seen related to finance commission, what should be done, that is second measure. And so urban population is set to rise exponentially. Urban India's future depends on the ability to address the key financial and the structural challenges. So Amrut is their mission for rejuvenation, urban transformation, achieving 80% utilization, smart cities mission reaching 70%. So public-private partnerships can be another way for creation of urban infrastructure, and then viability gap funding can be done by the government. So structural reforms would be critical. Additionally, empowering municipal governments with greater financial administrative autonomy will be critical in enabling. So 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment are also related to this. So collaborating India's future, urban future hinges on the ability to address these financial and structural challenges. So long-term strategies, short-term strategies can build the urban infrastructure and capital expenditure. So cooperative federalism is what being talked about here overall, broadly speaking. So after a health emergency, toxic air foretells an economic one. So air pollution is also economic crisis for the nation. Again, this is what we were talking about from the perspective of social justice and equity for the daily wages. What about their survival? Because for them, their survival is the main thing, before the quality of air. So that matters them to the most when it comes to if they are not getting employment, so they will migrate to other areas. So even healthcare costs, lows, the productivity, these are also the impacts. Income also falls. So these are also like it is stating, it is not just environmental crisis, but economic crisis because of the interdependence. We are seeing like the healthcare cost also increasing. United Nations Environment Program Emissions Gap Adaptation Gap Report for 2024. So transformation of the chest health is an invisible epidemic affecting millions across India. So it might lead to again increase in the non-communicable diseases also, when India already has 25% of the global non-communicable disease burden. So this is an unseen health crisis. So we have in detail talked about the measures also needed, like technology, policy, and related to economics. So the four measures that we talked in the very beginning. Healthcare for all, when we're talking about, again, the fundamental right, even under Article 21, or we need data, artificial intelligence, and the funding for that. So, leverage the medical jam troika report states that enable universal healthcare. The medical troika needs to be prioritized. So, joint the health data or the health IDs, digital health ID that we are focusing upon, automated claim settlements for 100% cashless transactions, and then mobile enabled on demand healthcare access, so telemedicine. So categorizing the population into emerging, middle according to the disease and the age is important. So their artificial intelligence can help us. And then accordingly, we can plan the measures needed. So we see that already healthcare is skewed towards curative care with a disproportionate 38% of spending allocated to inpatient services and treatments. So preventive care receives only 14% of the funds. So we need more proactive approaches on this front. And then medical inflation reaching 14% in 2023. So out-of-pocket expenditure is increasing. Out-of-pocket expenditure accounts for 45% of the total healthcare expenditures. So this is a critical challenge for us to ensure the availability, accessibility, affordability of healthcare for all and quality healthcare. So satellite, space junk or the space debris, we're talking about space is a global common. So this might be a bad news for the environment. So here, this is an illustration of a satellite burning up as it travels through Earth's atmosphere. So because of its, again, speed and the gases which are present. So here we had ASAT, which was launched by India. So that is one development. Polluting satellites, where US National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration others have presented evidence 10% of the aerosol particles in the stratospheric contain aluminum, other metals originated from burn-up of these satellites in the rocket stages. So when it comes to the Outer Space Treaty, that needs to be further amended and reformed so that we are able to prevent this challenge. So even like we can say space pollution is also one of the emerging areas. Impact of this pollution, it might impact again uh, the missions that we are sending firstly, and pollution from the burnt up satellites high up in the atmosphere is seemingly a distant concern for humans. So it might lead to ripple effects that affect the chemistry of the atmosphere. This is not a good news. So life on Earth has evolved. Again, climate change is a challenge here. So stratosphere absorbs 99% of the UV rays from the sun. So even aluminium oxide is also known as catalyst for the ozone depletion. So that can be another challenge for us on Earth. So Montreal Protocol 1989. So ozone layer depletion, that was the main thing here. Montreal Protocol. So this challenge, newly emerging challenge needs to be factored in. So ozone destroying chemicals, chlorofluorocarbons. Even soot emitted from the rocket engines absorbs the solar energy, which can warm up the atmosphere further. So this is the challenge, the twin challenge on the Earth, and one related to the space pollution. National versus state level choices. So the role of leadership in the alliance politics. So here we took one a detailed case study today related to whether freebies or creation of new opportunities. So what are the benefits? What are the challenges related to that, particularly in case of the recent Jharkhand elections that we saw? So role of leadership is definitely very important when it comes to their influence in terms of the decisions being made related to policy formulation, the priority and the way of addressing that. Young leaders dialogue on journey to connect them with the politics. So So Odisha Parba celebrations, you can see the Prime Minister interacting with people. So Viksit Bharat Young Leaders Dialogue will be held. So firstly, it generates a sense of responsibility and pride also when we are calling it to be as Viksit Bharat Young Leaders Dialogue. So the measures that we are taking again on the part of making people aware and what is their important role, how they can play that important role. And again, this is connecting youth with politics. So to connect 1 lakh such youth to politics, many special campaigns will be run in the country, and youths would be selected from villages, blocks, districts, and states. They will gather at Bharat Mandapam. So they will get an opportunity to present their ideas directly before the political class. So also the role of National Cadet Corps and noted the NCC name reminded one of their school and college days. So it is talking about the personality formulation and molding of the personality of the youth particularly. And even when it comes to again, like it is talking about different areas. So the compassion and the energy of India's youth or demographic dividend that needs to be equally, we can say, leveraged, and because they are going to be the part of the future political class. So, what do they think, and how are their ideas being formulated and molded is being focused upon? So, here, particularly related to elderly, like cybercrime, so making them aware about it. So, Ahmedabad, like, who is warning and making elderly aware about cybercrimes, including digital arrest. One Ki Baat episode of Prime Minister. So he's talking about, again, he also mentioned about the cyber frauds and the digital arrest, the measures that you need to take. So then Prime Minister also talked about his visit to Guyana. So he stated a mini India dwells there. So 180 years ago, people from India were taken to Guyana to work in the fields for their task. An oral history project is being carried out in India under which history enthusiasts and academicians they are collating the experience of the victims during the country's partition. Treaty to tackle plastic pollution. So ubiquitous today, ubiquitous means that it is present everywhere and anywhere. That is plastic pollution. We see everywhere around us. So it pollutes the environment and contributes to climate change. This is why a global treaty is being talked about here. So we have the plastic waste management rules. We talk about the extended producer responsibility, banning the single-use plastic. These are the measures already being taken up. So here, global treaty to regulate the plastic production is urgently needed, and multiple obstacles that we face. So here, like OECD, firstly, it is talking about in its report, plastic production is expected to touch 700 million tons by 2040. And annual global production of plastic doubled from 234 million tons to right now it is 460 million tons as of 2019. So half of this is being produced in Asia, followed by North America and then Europe. The challenge is lack of sustainable alternatives. Then UNEP, again, in its studies, have found that exposure to these chemicals and plastics can cause endocrine disruptions, also the diseases it can lead to, like reproductive disorders, then neurodevelopmental impairment, leading to climate change. It also impacts the animal health. And also, somewhere like when it comes to the urban planning aspect, also the clogging of drains, climate change, like when the plastic waste is burned, so it releases harmful gases because it is non-biodegradable. So it talks about just transition for the workers and those persons in the communities whose livelihoods would be affected. So like we could talk about mission life. So India can play a major role here. So countries like Saudi Arabia, Russia, Kazakhstan, they have expressed resistance to stricter mandates and they have instead proposed downstream measures like innovative waste management or waste to energy plants, for example, and sustainable plastic use. The Center for Science and Environment, important body. So, for example, the different countries they have different targets. For example, they proposed a target of 40% reduction by 2040, with 2025 as a base year. But again, we need a like global and common understanding on this. India's position is we made it clear that it does not support any restrictions on the production of these polymers because we do not have any alternatives that can be used at this larger scale as we see plastic. So any decision related to again the release of harmful chemicals or excluding certain chemicals which are used to produce or manufacture plastic, that should also be based on scientific studies and regulation of such chemicals should happen domestically. So we have banned single-use plastics covering 19 categories in 2022, and certain would be phased out in the final treaty. So the behavioral aspect of the consumers is also very important. And scientific and safe waste management. We need a mechanism to assess the infrastructure requirements. Again, finance would be needed here as well. So again, this is a repeated topic. India's stance related to recent $300 billion taken this up. Elections belong to the people. It's their decision. True. Here, for example, if we talk about how people's behavior or politicization of criminals or criminalization of politics, that has certain impact on the fair decision by the voters to like when it comes to their decision to whom they're going to cast their vote, or when we see the use of black money or cash being used to buy the voters is another challenge. And again, then spreading of misinformation, disinformation somewhere. The role of social media is also very important here in terms of people's or voters' decision. So it belongs to the people. It is again their fundamental right we can talk about. Not fundamental right, but right to vote is a very important part, or we can say the basic structure, like one person having one vote. So it is ultimately their decision. They have to fairly decide in a transparent manner and a fair and just manner. So it in a way ultimately decides the direction in which a country would move. So could Google be made to sell Chrome anti-monopoly action it faces in the US? So the big tech companies, they face the anti-monopoly actions, or particularly here if we're talking about Google, so it is related to the search engine. So, summary of the proposal said that more than a decade, Google has unlawfully maintained its monopolies in general search services and search text advertising through a web of anti competitive practices. So, other search engines are not so popularized or so much relied upon, even as we using the search services. So, like, even like when we say कुछ भी क्वेश्चन है तो you just Google it. So why only we say Google it? So role of artificial intelligence, Gemini and AI chatbot, that is also being promoted by Google. So it is particularly related to then US. So development of unfettered search ecosystem that induces entry, competition, and innovation as rivals divide to win the business of consumers and advertisers. So fair competition needs to be promoted, and this monopoly needs to be curbed. So here we're talking about the role of cooperatives. So firstly, we look at the stakeholders. So one is IFCO, then we have International Cooperative Alliance also particularly. So we are celebrating Sehkar Se Samriddhi. So there's this global cooperative conference which is happening, and if we here look at the role of, firstly, it is emphasizing the role of cooperative sector, the cooperative banks, FPOs, and the primary agricultural credit societies. So, for example, primary agricultural credit societies, three important roles: inclusive economic growth, social equality and prosperity, and sustainable development. So here, these things they can be again important pointers here for their development. Like 2025 is going to be the UN year of cooperatives. Firstly, this is important fact. Then primary agriculture credit societies. So we should now focus on making them multi-purpose, economically vibrant, and transparent. Apart from this, like world's largest decentralized grain storage plan is there. Then how we see the primary agricultural credit societies. So that needs to be diversified. For example, we can see them as common service centers for better access to the e-services in the villages. Then we can strengthen the urban and the rural cooperative banks. Here the role of RBI becomes important. Then innovation in the world's first nano urea and DAP, and then revival of the cooperative sugar mills. So in overall upliftment and development, inclusive development, particularly in the rural areas, role of cooperative sector is very crucial. So in line of fire, cops need course correction. So experts they stress on need for proper training. So police reforms. So how police can keep danger at bay. So defensive tactics, better training may what are the micro areas that can we can target. And safety precautions like wear body armors, ensure all safety equipments, use of force should be proportionate to the threat that is being posed. So it should be again lethal force should be used as a last resort to protect oneself. Last year, like Snatcher fatally stabbed an assistant sub-inspector. So even they face again the challenge on the part of their own life. So that's what we can follow here from the points related to training. Solar calculator to help in easy cost benefit analysis. So for residents seeking clarity on household solar panel benefits, I think this is under the PM Suryodaya Yojana for the promotion of again rooftop solar systems installation. So solar energy policy 2023 Delhi particularly it is talking about. So again, making people aware about what would be the benefits if they go ahead with this decision of installing solar panels on their rooftops. So awareness generation is important. So solar calculator will enable them to they can basically calculate what would be the initial cost of installation and how much amount of electricity would be generated so that again they can also in a way become self-reliant when it comes to energy production and it can save on the cost of electricity bills for them. So this can have one of the positive impacts in terms of generating more of aggregate demand in the economy because now that part of the disposable income might be either it can lead to more savings and investments or generation of aggregate demand in the economy. So this we've seen climate finance deal COP29. So we are already struck. So this like amount, the $300 billion worth of amount said to be very like very less on the part of the developing countries. And then even if we agree to one common amount that would be distributed, so ensuring what are going to be the factors on the basis of which we will decide that how that finance would be made available to different countries, how we are going to take care about again its fairness and the equity angle related to that. So core goal is developed countries to mobilize this much by 2035 for developing countries, but that is not sufficient. It's already very less. And the more we delay it, the more need for climate finance, the amount that will be needing would be increasing with time. So donor base encourages developing countries to make contributions, including through South-South cooperation on voluntary basis. Adaptation pursue efforts to at least triple the annual. So everything would firstly it would require finance, whatever is being talked about here. This we have taken up in detail, genocide by air and the three ways, the solutions that it provides. This is taken up, manufacturing soaps. So now here when we're talking about the role of the production linked incentive scheme. So we are now talking about diversifying it so as to link it with the incentives related to manufacturing sector so that it leads to more of job creation also, and it would be somewhere linked to capital expenditure and infrastructure creation. So right now it is like it is providing you additional financial incentives for the incremental output that different manufacturers are able to produce. So that is the current form. Important data, share of manufacturing is a contribution to GDPs. It has stagnated at 16% since financial year 12, like 2012. We have the target to increase it up till 25%, and manufacturing sector right now it employs 11.4% of India's workforce. Whereas we see 45% they are engaged in agriculture, when agriculture also somewhere contributes 16% to the GDP. So that is how we are the government is right now. This is like under formulation. So once we have the proper form of it, final form and decision on it, we'll discuss it further. And the government has been nudging India Inc. to invest to expand its capacity to serve India's growing needs. Winter session begins today. So what are going to the major areas that we can see are expected to be taken up? Already the challenge is ensuring that it is not again uh, being disrupted more because of the Adani case right now, which is going on. So one is the banking law amendment bill, which would be tabled up. So here it would seek to raise tenure of the directors in the cooperative banks from 8 to 10 years, and it will seek to provide consistency in reporting by banks to the RBI for better protection for the depositors and the investors, improve the audit quality in public sector banks, enhance the threshold in substantial interest clause. So this is one thing, and then another would be the management of the work property, so streamlining it further. So ENAM trade rising steadily. 1,400 mandis have been linked so far. So when we see the share of, for example, interstate mandis or interstate trading, so they have, particularly in the trading of agriculture commodities, they are having very less share on the part of ENAM participation on this platform. So gradually and steadily, we are seeing that more and more mandis are being linked. So in a way, it provides democratically available opportunity to all the farmers to participate through this platform, which offers them the benefits of like fair pricing determination, and on the part of promoting more transparency and accountability. Amid fund crunch, banks depend hopes on VRR. So variable rate repo auctions recently worth rupees 25,000 crores has been done by RBI. So what is firstly the purpose of doing these VRR auctions is that when we have the expectation or there's an indication that banks might face some liquidity deficit or there would be drying up of liquidity with the banks, then RBI does these VRR auctions in order to plug that liquidity gap. And it is also done when there is excess liquidity, so as to absorb that. So it works both the ways, but most often we have seen RBI using it to plug the liquidity deficit. So the tenor for this is, tenor means the time period for which that short-term liquidity is made available by RBI is overnight basis to 13 days. Recently, it is being done for 6 days or so. So when we see that the call rate, it starts to exceed the repo rate, then that is an indicator that it might lead to liquidity deficit on the part of or with the banks. And also when the overnight rate it shoots above the marginal standing facility, then also it is kind of an indicator that we need to take some steps. So liquidity crunch, when do we face it? So the factors behind that is, for example, when you have to make GST payments or the outflows related to that, or payment related to government securities. So actually the cost of the funds or borrowing of the funds for the banks, that increases because of call rate or overnight rate shooting up. So these availability of the finance or the this liquidity will ensure that the call rate and the repo rate, they remain aligned. And what can further accelerate this liquidity drying up would be, for example, if the foreign capital outflows is happening or RBI's intervention in the forex market also, it can also lead to drying up of liquidity because of rupee depreciating, and we need to again regulate that also to a certain level. So that's when the VRR, variable rate repo auctions, are done by RBI. Now, tax devolution criteria needs a revisit. So, for example, 15th Finance Commission, so the time period for it is 2021 to 26. So here we see that 15.8% is the share of the southern states in the tax devolution for the 15th Finance Commission time period of 2021-26. So we're talking about, do we need any change on the part of the 16th Finance Commission in order to again ensure that the we are able to devolve that finances in a fair and just manner, in equitable manner for all the states. So this is under Article 280 of the Constitution, Finance Commission, 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act 1992. So here we are seeing that 15th Finance Commission, the total amount, the devolution amount was 41% of the central divisible pool. So in this case, we are talking about certain friction areas. For example, we see that the certain states were performed better, so they feel that they would be punished for it, or that factor is not given like significant amount of weightage. So that might lead to some amount of liquidity crunch or less amount of financial devolution for these certain states, even when they have performed in a better manner. So there are like four heads which are being mentioned here on the basis of need. So that includes population, area, demographic change, and equity angle. So we have income distance there, efficiency and the performance, tax efforts, fiscal discipline, and for fiscal stability, we have forest cover. So here the weightage is also given us for the 15th Finance Commission. And so devolution is the dominant component, accounting for 80 to 85% of finance commission's transfers. Like tax and fiscal efforts, it has very less weightage of only 2.5%. So going forward, how we are going to ensure that it remains equitable for all the states when it comes to addressing the vertical gaps and the horizontal gaps. So it is being stated that instead of taking per capita income, you should factor in the per capita income on purchasing power parity basis in the income distance criteria. Also sharing the like tax revenues on 50-50 basis. This needs to be emphasized. This we have taken up. Civic body struggle for revenue continues. So that's all for the day. Thank you so much for joining us on Ansarkari. Stay tuned for further detailed sessions.